China. Today is Thursday, the 14th of September 2017, and it is $3,434. That's not the block height. That's the price of Bitcoin, and it's dropped substantially.
Oh my God.
Ah! What, is this by the dip? No, we can't say that because of all the newbies, people watching. Got to be careful what you say these days. Okay, quickly do the protocol. Block height 485,261. And what are we saying? Shinobi, what are you saying?
I'm saying, oh my God, I don't know, the sky's falling. Why'd you do this, China? You're supposed to ban Bitcoin and not really ban Bitcoin. Why'd you really ban Bitcoin?
Well, they didn't. That was fake news, remember? We reported on this already. And last week, if you were paying attention, I said, expect some more headlines. I don't think this is over. And well, I know because I've been here before. We were here. Not as simple as that. There's a bit more complexity to it. And then a few days later, China bans Bitcoin again. And so you just had this kind of, bounces were just made illegal. I think you weren't allowed to bounce. And as a result, a lot of people get wrecked because they're still trading like the hourly time frame, thinking it's going to keep on going up forever. And then it does the other thing. It does that thing it's doing right now. We just reached daily S1, as I pointed out on that chart just a minute ago. And let's get into why this has happened. Remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial advice. I'm not accredited or certified in any way, pretty much in anything, to be honest. Oh, brutal. Brutal. Look at all the shit coins. They're all down.
Red.
Look at that. Oh, there's not a single green one in there. And oh, well, here's the tweet. And I'm sure that Charlie Lee is thinking, oh, I told you so, told everybody about this, but you didn't believe me. And so there was only this. There wasn't a blog post or anything. This was BTC China, one of the exchanges, not one of the biggest in China, needless to say, coming out with a statement that after carefully considering the announcement published by the Chinese regulators earlier in the month, BTC China Exchange will stop all trading at the end of this month, September 2017. Remember, this is the way the Americans do date, which is very frustrating and annoying. And CNBC, the trolls, the mainstream media trolls that we covered yesterday, who told you that you may be financing Kim Jong-un if you trade Bitcoin in certain places. Well, they're now obviously loving it. Not a really big article. It's just one of those kind of journalism. It's so-called just churn it out. And a lot of people seem to be giving credit to JP Morgan. I don't know what other people think. I don't know why JP Morgan is getting that kind of publicity. I don't think he had too much to do with it.
I mean, I think that's a kind of a confluence of a lot of things. Like these things usually are. We've had the bounce almost immediately off 5K, and it seemed like we were just looking for reasons. And I guess with things going on in China, we found one.
Theo, you there? Your mic working right now? Theo is off.
I am here. I'm here. What's the question?
Well, dude, what do you think the question is, man? Look at my screen share right now. Look at what's happening. Look around you. People are dying out there,
man. I don't know. I guess that I'm just really neutral, or I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. Who knows?
You're neutral to bearish?
Bearish already? I mean, yeah, sure. I guess you could say it's, some of the long-term trends or whatever are, right at the do or die, you could say, on some of the technical things. I mean, okay, but as far as overall in the short term, it doesn't look great. It's true as far as price, but I mean, overall, come back to the same story. The Private Ryan meme is pretty cool. We need to give Jim BTC credit for that whenever that happens. Someone did. I don't want to get off track, but on our internal chat here, we're talking about the reason I want to say something about that is because we can talk about what happened was a friend of ours made a meme about people having trouble with the price going down, let's say. And if I believe it's the one that you're talking about. And what happened was at least one person, maybe more than one, has taken it and put it in a YouTube video and not given the person that made it credit. Now, of course, the person that made it is borrowing. You know, it's kind of like when you make a collage and someone just takes your collage and just says not in pictures of it and puts it on their stuff and not going to say what it is. But anyway, without that is related to the, we'll show it's related to the price. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. You can trade it anywhere in the world, in the sense that traders from USA could be trading on Chinese exchanges until, I don't know, fairly recently. And same thing goes the other way around. There are still unregulated in the sense of very little KYC or no KYC places to trade Bitcoin. So people from China could trade Bitcoin. You know, there's still a lot of things about, is this just for, okay, BCC said they're shutting down. Government says there are no Bitcoin CNY trading, crackdown on ICOs, you know, delisting of ICOs and so on and so forth. But I mean, if people want to trade it, they'll just figure out a way to trade it somewhere else, or there'll be some derivative, or I don't know, there's this talk about the government making their own, you know, their China tether or whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of things that could happen, but it's not going to stop anyone that wants to trade Bitcoin from trading Bitcoin. They'll figure out ways of doing it. Sure, the Great Wall of China and the Great Internet Wall of China is going to be difficult, and so on. So this is the meme, cryptocurrency trading war. And originally, Jim BTC, and I believe that is his Twitter handle, created that. And he has created a lot of GIFs that are really good. And as I like to say, in the future, when people look at this stuff, this is going to be how we look at history. So people are going to, there's Jim. So give Jim credit for making the GIF. Yes, he didn't have any part in making the film, but give him artistic credit for making that. I really hope people, and also follow him. He's got a lot of funny and really relevant things. And in the future, people are going to want to know, what was it like during the China crash of 2017 when China banned Bitcoin for the last time? Or what was it like during the ICO crackdown? Or what was it like during the run up? Well, they're going to look at these memes. You know, what was it like if you just started trading crypto in 2017? Well, probably like this GIF right there.
Daddy, what did you do during the Great Meme War?
Exactly. What did you do? What did you do during the Great Meme War? And I think that, you know, looking back, there are going to be good historical documents. Also, our old friend BTC Art Gallery has a good documentation of, I believe, back to 2013, memes and artwork having to do with Bitcoin up to now. And it's a really interesting catalog if you look back at some of the things, and maybe you remember some of the things that happened. So that's good. And everyone, if you want some good memes, follow Jim.
Yeah, we should toss that in the show notes at the end. That's actually,
yeah. So I mean, but Chris, what's new? China, Bitcoin, China. Everyone's always talking about China. The question is, what's going to happen now in the future? If they really said, you know, the exchanges, it doesn't matter what they said, but the exchanges as a result say, okay, it's not worth it for us to do business. Okay. Let's say they shut down. What's that mean for the future? No more effect of the China market, or where they're going to trade in Korea or Japan maybe, or what's going to go on?
Well, what's new now is new people are trading it, and they weren't here the first time around. And we're like OGs, we're original gangsters, okay? And this goes to a point that I think we were making on the chat earlier, which is that sometimes when you're an original gangster, when you've been around the block a few times, everything you say becomes a newsworthy event. And so someone can say something in a chat room like the Whale Pool, the Bitcoin Mumble, where we are, and somebody else will listen to it and think, oh, that person's got insight. That person is ahead of the game and he knows, he's got news, he's got real inside information. And then they might actually trade on that. And, you know, people can make money that way, or they can lose money that way. And I feel like what's different now is that you've got this new audience that outnumbers the old crowd, right? Like, we are outnumbered now by all the new people in the space who don't necessarily have the same political ideas or the same ideology about Bitcoin as we had when we came into it. Just in the same way that when I came into this in 2012, 13, I was, you know, different to the people that were in it before me.
Yeah, it's that constant cycling of new people and new attitudes, and that's going to be one of the most interesting dynamics going forward, because like Bitcoin was created for an explicit political purpose. I mean, all you have to do to see that is look at the Genesis block. And it's just going like, how is that going to work going forward with all of these new attitudes, new ideas and philosophies meshing with that core that it started off with?
Yeah. Rick, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on this whole price drop. You know, it's like we're saying, there's a lot with China and technicals and emotions. But one of the things that I think a lot of people are overlooking is there just are so many alts this year, and it's an oversaturated market with altcoins, and everybody's getting into this. Like you're saying, we got a new round of bag holders, and some of them are bag holders of Neo and, you know, all these other things that we don't know how long it's going to be before those things really come to fruition, and we start to see some people really get hurt on that end. But, you know, hopefully they'll come around towards the Bitcoin side of things, because, you know, this price drop's hurting, and people, we're all hurting across the market. But I feel like that oversaturation might be a bigger long-term effect than just this price drop right now.
Yeah, I'm retweeting this by the Bitcoin mom, and she's like, "We're blowing 4,000," and a Bitcoin old time is like, "Oh, I remember mining 30K of these things and giving them away." That's not me, by the way. I wouldn't do that. I'm not that altruistic.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so it's true. There's a lot of different viewpoints. I totally agree. I have people PMing me, what's going on? I'm down this much. How do I do it? What is going on? And so on and so on and so forth. So, you know, that's just how markets go. They go through cycles. Now, are we finding ourselves at the changing of the cycle or not? Well, we have to, you know, you have to kind of make up your mind about that. But yeah, things do happen. Altcoins were amazing this year. That's great. They were crazy. ICOs, totally another dimension of ICOs. Just think about all the paper gains and losses that were made on ICOs now, because you can't. A lot of that's what people, and also with the altcoins and the whole coin market cap. We can just touch on that briefly. Now, I'm not against the side. I'm not against any of that. People can look at things how they want, analyze how you want. But just remember, I don't think new people get or take into account that, okay, this coin has this much market cap. Yeah, but what's the daily volume, and what's how much could you cash out in a day without crashing the price by 50% or 20% or 100%? And I don't think people realize that. So a lot of the gains are purely on paper, and some of the losses are on paper too. So it's just emotion, and that's what you see in the chart too. A lot of emotion. I think just keep that in mind. Think about things like that. And yeah, if you use Bitcoin and buy stuff, that is shorting 1x. You could look at it like that. So if you now all the people that bought stuff a few weeks ago are like, oh great, I bought something. Now, you know what I mean? That was the best time to buy something. You know, so there's different ways to look at it depending on what you've been doing. So just keep that in mind when you spend Bitcoin. Hey, the price can also go down. And so let's see. Have we been going up all of 2017 basically? So that means that if you came in to Bitcoin, you've only seen bull, you know, which is crazy. And you've seen the whole ICO run up. I mean, that's just, imagine if you just entered during that, how crazy of an experience that would be. That's kind of like entering in, you know, sometime in 2013 times what, 100? You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Yeah, this is just this year. This is 12 months. This is 12 months from this line here over to here, and that's you know, that's a substantial increase. You know, 457%. That's a lot. That's a lot. You were down at 600. We started at 600 this time last year, approximately, and now we're all the way up at 3,000. And there were some people that got in, you know, at 500. I remember those people coming into show. In fact, actually, you could have just scraped 550, I think, in September last year or just before that. But that's a substantial increase. And if you don't think that we're due for a correction after that much upside, I mean, it only takes one thing to really trigger, you know, a sell-off. And a lot of this is profit taking. Remember, this isn't just people getting wrecked. People generally, the psychology of most traders that are not trading with margin is that they won't sell for less than they bought for. So they'll just hold it. Maybe they've got cash flow and they can afford to you know, bide their time in other investment vehicles, or just by being liquid. But we can see the pivot levels here. Pivots are one of my favorite ways to measure. And you know, we could have, you know, we got resistance all the way up at like 10,000, and that's what a lot of people were wanting. But it might take a little bit of consolidation. Is my thinking, before we really make our way out of this. This is a daily candle. This is a quite big volume here, but also this is on the 3-day. Sorry. If we go to the 6 hour, that last 6 hour candle we had was just massive volume. And we look at this 100, and this is on Bitfinex, and there's $170 million of volume traded. That's
what's the
huge.
Okay, does anyone know off the top what the, I can try to look for it, what the percent price change was today or weekly so far, and then compare that to something like before I was even in Bitcoin, where it goes to what, 10 cents to 2 cents, or, you know, 100 to 1,000 to 300.
That's about a 33% drop.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Is that a lot for Bitcoin? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You see what I mean?
It is a lot for Bitcoin. Yeah, it is a lot for Bitcoin.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, from the top there, it's just 4,900. Yeah, so it's a big drop, and I can see a lot of people that are new to this that aren't necessarily used to that kind of volatility being a bit spooked out. I totally get it, but as long as you're not trading on margin, and you're just 1x. I had a friend who bought Bitcoin at around $900 on the first round up to 1,200, and they didn't care. Like they had some inheritance, came in at the right time. They came to me, they said, Chris, what do you think? And I'm like, well, it's looking a bit toppy here, but they just went lump sum. They didn't dollar cost average. It was just like lump sum investment. I'm just going to buy this, put it on a paper wallet, you know, keep it safe somewhere. And that's it. And now, you know, they're over 3 times up from where they started. So, you know, it's just about being patient, I think.
Yeah, you just got to ride the wave until you have that nice buffer, and then you can let the anxiety go a little bit and know you have that buffer room of profit. And the further we get up from that, the more secure you are mentally in your position.
Yeah. So look, it's enough on price, I think, for today's show. But this is where we got the figure 27 billion from. It came from Marketwatch. They had to adjust this a few times. It was 20 billion, then it was 23, and then it ended up being 27. And it's just really a filler piece. There's nothing much in here, but you can go read it. It's in the show notes as always. So on to the real news. And yes, we are rewarding those who stick around in our shows the most. This is, I think, you know, we reported this 2 days ago on episode 20 when it was Bitcoin Core 0.15 was tagged for release. But now it actually is released. And we've got this article here, wonderful work by Aaron van Verdum, who we've, you know, we like to report a lot of the stuff that he does on here. And he actually takes us through all of the improvements and really puts it into an easy understand form. Shinobi, what can you do to help us along with that?
Well, pretty much the 2 big ticket items are the improved fee estimation. What they've done is essentially break things down into 2 different time horizons. One that's a lot more conservative with an extended horizon. And that's so that you can estimate your fee in a way that's not going to be affected by short-term spikes. So if you're spending coins that you don't need confirmed immediately, you can use this conservative fee estimation and pay closer to the bare minimum of what you're going to need to get confirmed in the time you want. And then they also have a separate shorter horizon fee estimate, but that's obviously going to be more prone to reactions based on spikes in the mempool or short-term fluctuations. And it's going to default unless you explicitly clarify which estimation algorithm you want to use to the conservative one. But it's pretty much just improvements so that you're not overpaying fees based on spam attacks or other short-term fluctuations. And then I believe they also optimized the data dump for just getting the data for the fee estimates for other clients or software that use Bitcoin Core for their fee estimate, so that that can be fine-tuned a little more. And the other big improvement is how the UTXO database is organized. So I believe I touched on this in an earlier episode. I'll try to just be quick. But it used to index the outputs of unspent transactions by the actual transaction ID. And this came with a lot of overhead when actually checking things from the UTXO set. You actually had to grab things by the transaction ID, deserialize all of that, grab the inputs that you want. And so they've switched over the format to just index things by the output. So you don't have all that extra overhead of grabbing things based on transaction ID. And one important thing to note, when you first upgrade to 015, it will run through and change the entire format of your UTXO database. And so the estimate that was given in the release notes was maybe 5, 10 to 30 minutes to run through that, depending on how powerful your machine is. And after that, it's going to take up approximately 15% more space on disk, but it's a lot more efficient in terms of processor use and memory use. And so this is going to have a lot of implications on the validation time. So when you're validating a new block at the tip, it's going to update the UTXO set a lot faster. When you're bootstrapping a node from scratch, obviously it has to constantly update the UTXO set. So this improvement has a really big change in the time for the initial block download. It should go a lot faster. I believe off the top of my head, it was 40% faster. And this is, it might not seem like a big deal, but this is what they do. They're optimizing things so that what we have now works as fast as possible, instead of just trying to scale things through brute force. Just throw a $20,000 computer at it. And, you know, it might not seem like a lot now, but going forward, this is a big deal for people who are having trouble right now in terms of resource use on their machine in order to be able to run a node. And then some of the other things, it's mostly RPC changes. One of the biggest things I wanted to point out was previously, in order to merge unsigned, like individual unsigned transactions into a single one, use the sign raw transaction RPC call, I believe. And they've actually created an individual call for that, so that you'd be able to provide unsigned transactions and simply have the core node merge those into a single transaction to be signed. And potentially this could be used to kind of piggyback transactions together with people, so that you, especially with Schnorr signatures down the line, would have a lot of data savings, which translates into fee savings. And then the other big change that jumps out to mind is multiple wallet support, because previously the wallet actually has to maintain its own database of outputs and addresses and their balances. And if you were to import a new wallet, it would have to actually go through and scan the entire blockchain to update this. And in the case of a pruned node especially, it obviously doesn't have all the historical data, so it has to go through and download the entire chain again. And so with this change, you can have multiple wallets running on your node that are all kept up to date at the same time. So especially if you're running a pruned node, you're not going to have to go through the whole blockchain download again to keep the balances updated. So that should be pretty nice for anybody who wants to keep their coins segmented and not all lumped together in a single wallet.
Yeah, so a few things to clarify. Pruned node is just when you run the Bitcoin client, but you don't download the whole blockchain. Or in fact, you have to initially, but then as you download it, you're actually going to be deleting old block data. And you can edit that in the Bitcoin conf file, bitcoin.conf, in the default application support folder, which you can just look up on Stack Overflow or in the documentation. Depends on which operating system you're using. And in there, you can say, well, how many megabytes do I want, the database to be on my computer? you'll still have to go through and validate all the blocks throughout history, but once you've done that, the amount of space taken up on disk will never be more than what you've predefined at any point, even during the validation. And the UTXO is unspent transaction output, and that's just a convenient way so that your node knows which transactions, which TXs it can actually spend, which it's able to spend, because as the name suggests, they're unspent. So is that clear for everyone? Go update now. There's another thing, obviously, Shinobi, we didn't mention, which is the way that it's going to be, this new client is going to be dealing with the SegWit2x nodes. Do we want to give mention to that? So it's not quite like a UASF release where, you know, you were virtue signaling with your software installation, where you could say, look, I've got a, you know, conscientious objection to this change that's being made, or in the case of SegWit, not being made in time, and, you know, wanting to speed that up. Now with 0.15, people have an opportunity again to install this software and potentially kick off SegWit2x nodes from the network. Yeah, and it's going to do that to pretty much prevent a network partition shock if the fork actually does happen. You have the opportunity for nodes to be isolated and only connected to incompatible consensus rules. So this will start banning those nodes preemptively and ensuring that if the fork does happen, by that time, everybody will be connected to the correct nodes, so that if a partition happens, it's not going to leave nodes isolated on their own little islands with no idea what's going on. Yeah, and I'm not really a fan of virtue signaling, but when people like Philippe get involved, I'm all ears, because I just think this is a fantastic meme, and I think you should all go help spread the message now. This needs to be put on a t-shirt. And actually, speaking of items of clothing, we should also advertise right now the new hat that's out, the Dragon's Den hat, named after the channel from which this Mumble Chat is named. Dragon's Den. Love this guy. What's with that beard? Look at that facial hair, man. Bitcoin Illuminati. Here's your chance. Yeah. So by Excellion, Samson Mao. And just think he's done. I mean, how much must he be making on this clothing range? I mean, I don't really think he's making too much. I mean, from what I understand, a lot of the user-activated software hats were pretty much gifts given out to a lot of people. Well, the question is when's the fashion show? We need a runway. We do though. He's not wrong there, guys. Like Theo's on to a point. We do need a Bitcoin fashion show. I think, you know, these hats have become real classic emblems, and I think it just helps to spread the message, you know. It's a form of virtue signaling that I approve of. So yes. Everybody practice their blue steel, and you know, we got to get this, you know, we got to get this fashion show going. Hats are a thing. Maybe there's something else that's a fashion thing for Bitcoin. You know, Equifax t-shirts. You could do a lot of, there's a lot of possibilities. Cool. All right. On to the last story of the day. Yesterday's show was so long. We did 2 shows yesterday. You've had like 3 for the price of 2 here or something. Janine, why don't you give us an update, as we've been following it on Equifax?
Yeah, so you know how I said yesterday that we weren't sure how many people outside the US were included in the breach? Well, last night we talked about Argentina being included in the breach. I've realized in the last 24 hours that there's also 44 million UK citizens, which comprises 67% of their population, and they have been determined to be affected by the breach, in addition to an unknown number of Canadians and whoever else in the world that Equifax had business with. The most recent news besides that is that Equifax, via one of the equity research firms that they hired to look into the breach, is that they believed it occurred due to a web application vulnerability in their Apache Struts server framework. However, the vulnerability that they cited, especially in that Ars Technica article, it kind of needs to be updated. That was fixed all the way back in March. Yes, March, months and months ago. There's also another new vulnerability that was discovered on September 5th, but that would technically be a 0 day because September 5th, I think, was a day or two before the breach was even announced publicly. So it would be almost too recent, they think, to be the source of the leak. And there's also, when they announced that they think it was through Apache struts, they actually didn't provide any evidence whatsoever behind that claim. So we don't even know if Apache struts was the weak spot. ZDNet reports that Equifax's breach detection software is so bad that it's seriously hindering their ability to determine the source of the leak. But regardless, the fact that they apparently don't update critical software in their systems very often is a pretty damning admission in itself, in addition to what we talked about yesterday with their Argentinian portal using admin as a password.
I think admin makes a great password. I just usually use password as my password across all my accounts and everyone else.
No, you just got to have a space, just an empty space, just one space and enter.
No one will ever guess that. No one ever.
That is
or just lots of spaces. Just space, 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 space. No one will have guessed that.
Like, do these people have literally billions of dollars of information and they can't even apply a security patch on time?
Yeah, I think they take it for granted. I think people get complacent, and that's the problem. As more and more of our personal information is stored in these silos, it becomes a honeypot. And if you're an enterprising hacker and you're confident that you can cover your tracks, then it just acts as it's just sitting there. Why not take it? I mean, even just for the spectacle of it, just to show everyone that this company is like vulnerable. I wouldn't be surprised if most of these kind of big level attacks were state funded, to be honest. I think these just look like things that a company could hire a bunch of a hacking group to do. But all right, otherwise, slow news day, everyone.
Actually,
not much has happened.
You want to let Rick touch on the update from Japan real quick? I think it's just
yeah, please.
Details.
Yeah. Yeah, man. GMO Internet Group came out the other day and put out some technical specs on their 7-nanometer chips they plan on releasing. And it looks like they actually plan on putting one of these 7-nanometer chips on a PC card that you can, have on your regular at-home PC, to where you could be mining with 8 terahashes per second, consuming 300 watts. And, it has some more details on as far as their mining farms, and I think they're putting together 10 terahash cards that run on 500 watts, and it should put out 1.25 petahashes per second. I'm not quite sure how many of those they plan on putting together. Also says that they're planning on moving to Scandinavia, which we were kind of wondering where exactly they would head, and it looks like that's where they're planning on going. But other than that, that appears to be the update with those guys. And, still need to look into the 7-nanometer chips and who exactly is getting those fabricated first.
Yeah, so Japan's the new China. I don't think it quite runs off the mouth like Japan. China. Yeah, China definitely sounds better. I don't know what we're going to do now if we have to keep screaming Japan every time something happens.
You can just call them China. I don't know. Keep the meme going.
No, that's racist. You can't say that. Right, James Bond. Don't worry about it, man. It's cool. You can ask me about it, but I don't work for that company anymore. No, I never worked for that company. What am I saying? And no 2X bra and panties. I think that's a good idea. What do you guys think on the runway? Do a lingerie. That's big money.
I'd like to see
big money.
Well, would you wear no 2X, panties, boxers, let's say? Why not?
I think the clothing range, I think the whole lingerie market, swimwear, there's big dollars, big money in that.
I am seeing blockchain and ICO written all over it.
I think we should do an ICO for our own Bitcoin clothing range. I think that would definitely be a goer. Get Bitcoin back into the bedroom. Right, guys, today I think going to keep this one short. We will be dividing up yesterday's show into two, and we'll re-release those just so that I think Tim's interview was just epic. We didn't expect it to go on that long, end up being an epic show. So we're going to edit that one down, hopefully re-release it at some point over the weekend. So look forward to that. And just to say thank you to everyone. This been one of our biggest attendances of live viewers concurrently, 74 viewers. What the hell are you doing? I'm not trying to make this into a big thing. So just be clever with that growth metric. Yeah, it's one organic growth. Yeah, let's see how many people I can get to switch off right now. Dead air. Let's watch this dead air.
Well, not bots.
See how many people. 71. It's down by 3. Come on, tune out. Tune out. No, they're not doing it. All right, that's just silly. I'm being flippant and facetious. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Remember, if you like what you see here, you can hit the subscribe and like button below. But remember, only if you want to. Bye for now. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Later.